And I want to welcome you to a discussion that we're going to be having with Rashid Nuri, who we have coming into our program actually once a month now. And he is an urban farmer here in Atlanta. And Rashid, welcome.
Well, thank you, Heather. It's a pleasure to be here again. Hi, Nadia.
Hello. And Rashid is with an organization called Truly Living Well. He has 4 farms. Sometimes I'm inclined to say gardens, but it's really a farm, isn't it, Rashid?
Well,
what do you say?
Depends on who I'm talking to.
Well, what do you say here? What do you say on Just Peace?
Well, we just said urban farms.
Urban farm. So 4 urban farms. And one of the more recent ones, as many of you all know who have been listening to the show, is in Wheat Street, the Wheat Street Garden Farms, and which is in downtown Atlanta, which is really unique. Because we're seeing more of that kind of thing happening around the country, which we've talked about from time to time. But tonight, I want to talk with Rashid about industrial agriculture and compare that, of course, to natural or organic production. But, Rashid, I want to go into a bit of a history of this with you.
Sure. Where do you want to start?
It's a really good question because I know you know this so well, but I guess we should start at the beginning. How do you do that, right? Now, let me couch this in some sort of way that throughout the history of humanity, actually, we have been farming naturally, right?
Yeah.
And then in the past century and a half, I suppose, this started to change a bit.
Actually, it's a little before that, which we can try to explain. I have a very dear friend of mine gave me a book recently. It was an adult story, but it began once upon a time. And I think that is where we should begin. Is once upon a time, man had a much closer relationship to nature than he does today. And we've lost that. And there are reasons why that has been lost. I try to explain. It's primarily because we have changed the way that we think about ourselves and our relation to the material world that exists around us. So I'm going to take a minute to explain. There are a lot of folk that come up to me and say, "Oh, Rashid, you're a master of this, a master of that." And I have to explain, no, as long as I'm living, I'm going to continue to learn. And I saw a movie over the weekend with man had language, things that I understood, but he had a language that helped me be able to explain this work even more so. This is why I want to go back to earlier times. And about the middle of about 1500, whenever Isaac Newton was around, he created a new way of thinking. Okay, and it was Newtonian physics, Newtonian mechanics, and what happened is, rather than looking for ways to be in tune with nature, accord with nature, man got to the point where he believed he could control and dominate nature. And the reason is that we're able to look at the universe and be able to put numbers to it and say that and be able to predict what was going to happen. And we thought this was the way to approach all of agriculture, all of life. The metaphor is this. If you're able to take a watch apart, a watch is broken, you take a watch apart, you can see where all the parts fit. If there's one is broken, you can put it back in and make it work again. But nature doesn't work quite like that. We're in the age now of wave theory, quantum mechanics, a way of looking at the universe. In how this has been interpreted, scientists today feel as though they can take apart nature and put it back together better than nature can do itself. Okay? And this is what we've done with agriculture. This is done with all the life around us. We think that we try to dominate and control rather than being in harmony with with the natural order of things. So the same attitude, same paradigm has been brought to agriculture. We skip forward to the 150 years that you're talking about. There was a German named Justus von Liebig, who in his laboratory learned that there were certain nutrients that plants needed at a minimum in order to be able to grow. And he broke that down and narrowed it down to nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Having isolated those elements, working for the leaves, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium for the roots and the leaves. Okay, he he stated a theory which is called the theory of the minimum. Whichever nutrient is available to the plants and the minimum amount will determine that plant's ability to grow. Okay? So with that knowledge, to go out and put fertilizer on the plants, not thinking about the soil, not thinking about the life in the soil, but just isolating the plants from the soil and saying, we know more than God does. So if we add nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to these plants, then we'll be able to grow things. And they did this for a long time. But it doesn't work because there are certain elements that have been left out. They left out all the microorganisms. They left out all the other microorganisms, micronutrients and in the combination, the symbiosis, the relationship between all these things that help things grow. So the scientists have taken over agricultural production. Instead of people looking at nature and seeing what nature has provided, how nature works together, what they have done is say, we know better than nature does. We are going to control and dominate what happens in the soil. That has got us where we are today.
When you say, Rashid, if you don't mind.
Please.
When you say that got us where we are today, are you speaking about all of the countries and agricultural communities on the planet, or just the Western ones?
Well, see, that's a very, very good point. I got a book here called Stuffed and Starved. They were looking at it. I'm reading by Raj Patel. And he's talking about how it's the hidden battle for the world food system. And what you're finding all over the world is that Western thought processes about agriculture have been exported all over the world. Okay, everywhere you look. This is why you have a rush in Africa now to acquire that land. Africa has all the resources for everybody. And the Chinese are coming in trying to get it. Americans are invading through Libya to try to get to the land. You got people investing. The Arabs are buying all this land up so they can export commercial agriculture, all right, and continue to dominate the populations. It's a recolonization of Africa. So no, it's just not America and the West. It's being exported all over the world, and that's the problem, part of the problem. So the science on it then after the Second World War in particular. Now go back just a few years before that, when the Dust Bowl era in America happened during the Depression. There were a lot of factors that came together, but agricultural production was reduced because of the droughts. People didn't have irrigation, and the war ended. You have all these surplus chemicals. All the chemical manufacturers, munitions manufacturers wanted to keep making money. The war is a very, very profitable enterprise. It's only been America's involvement with Iraq and Afghanistan where you had a recession and wars at the same time. That has never happened in history before. All right? People make money. Countries do very well when they're dominating and winning wars. So that tells you there's something's going on in the world that's not quite correct. They had all this ammonium nitrate, which is what you use as gunpowder. What are they going to do with it? They said, wow, let's sell it to the farmers. So they give it to the farmers. The farmers then make crops that grow more, kills everything that's in the soil, okay? But they're able to grow more crops. Then they start subsidizing the crops. It's a very simple but complicated system, if you understand it. They subsidize the production, use that surplus production to dominate the world politics by using food as a weapon around the world rather than guns, right, which is still comes from the same source of material, ammonium nitrate. So corn becomes the bullets.
So what do you mean? What do you mean food as a weapon? How does that work?
We will give you food if you do what we tell you to do.
I see.
All right. So you have a lot of countries that were devastated after the war. People need food. People have to eat. And if your whole economy has been destroyed, here we'll give you food if you let us invest in your country, if you follow our rules. They used the PL-40 program, which came in the late 40s, early 50s, which was food for peace, is what they called it. You give us the political agreements that we ask for, we'll ship you tons of food. What does that do? It provides the ship transport makes money. The farmers make money because the prices stay up and subsidized. The grain companies make money. Everybody makes money except the folk who are receiving the food, and then that food is then exchanged for the raw materials that they have brought back to this country to continue the industrialization process. It's insidious. But I didn't explain. Let me go on. You got to go ahead and ask your question.
No, Rashid, go ahead. You want to say something else about that?
Along with this use of the chemicals in the food, okay, you had the government, U.S. government, subsidize breeding programs with the grains, And the principal grains around the world are corn, wheat, rice, and cotton. Those are the 4 really standout commercial crops around the world.
And they're generally called commodities, right? The commodity crops.
Yeah. Yes, they are commodities.
Yeah.
They started breeding programs to hybridize the food. This is to standardize it, so all the corn is the same size. It'll all harvest at the same time. And they continue to. We had a man named Norman Borlaug. I got a hero and an anti-hero in agriculture. George Washington Carver is my hero. We talked about him earlier this year. And Norman Borlaug is my anti-hero. This is the man who won the Nobel Peace Prize for the Green Revolution, thinking helping people. But what is actually the Green Revolution has actually done is created greater poverty around the world than riches. The only folks that have become rich are the grain companies, okay, and the chemical companies who have provided the inputs. The farmers themselves are starving. This is why you get all those suicides in India today of the farmers because of their relationship with Monsanto and the other large companies.
We're going to go into that a bit more as well. We're going to take a break, but I want to tell our listeners that we're talking with Rashid Nuri, who is an urban farmer here in Atlanta. We're talking about some of the history of agriculture, certainly the history of industrial agriculture, and the impact it has on communities everywhere. And we haven't talked enough about this, but we will, the environment as well. In about 15 minutes, we're going to open up the phone lines, and you all can begin calling in and ask Rashid some questions. But we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned. All right, again, my name is Heather Gray, and the program is Just Peace, and we're talking with urban farmer Rashid Nuri about industrial agriculture. And before we went to that break, we were about to launch into a discussion about the Green Revolution. So let's talk about your anti-hero, Rashid.
Norman Borlaug. He had started under Henry Wallace sent him to Mexico.
And Henry Wallace was
the Secretary of Agriculture. He also ran for president back in the 40s.
Exactly.
He was 2 terms the Secretary of Agriculture under Roosevelt and then under Truman. These men were well intentioned, but the results of their thought processes and the paradigms in which they work is where we ended up. This is why I started talking about the science of the Newtonian mechanics, that we can dominate nature instead of trying to be in harmony with it.
This assumption that can be done.
That's very correct. And you know what assume. You break that word down.
Yeah, right.
The assumption that we can dominate, and we're finding out every day that you can't. If you just look at the natural disasters we've had just in this century alone, should let people understand you can't dominate nature. The best that you can do is be in harmony with and in tune with, which is the essence of natural urban agriculture, which we have been talking about at all our other meetings.
Right.
Today we're looking at the commercial side of it. All right, so if you got the hybridization of the crops, means that there's certain things you have to have. You have to have fertilizer, you have to have chemicals for the pests, and you have to have irrigation.
Now, when you're talking about hybridizing, and you're talking about this effort to sort of standardize crop production, that's what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
So you have corn that's the same height, and you have the same type of corn and so forth.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah. All right, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rashid.
Yeah, there's some science behind that. The problem with hybridization is the seeds cannot be put back in the ground. You can't save your seed. You can't tithe your seed. You can't save a tenth, put it back the next year. Because what you put back is going to be a throwback to previous generations where they've been crossed, and thus keeps you in debt to and beholding to the seed companies to provide you new seed every year, which you have to pay for.
Whereas farmers, since time began, have always saved their seeds.
That's exactly right. You save
for next year's crop.
That's where the concept of tithing comes from. You plant a crop. For every 10 seeds you get back, you save 1.
Yeah.
Okay? And you eat the other 9.
Right.
That's where it became. You can be all through the Bible. This is what happened in Egypt with David and Joseph and those folks. That's where the tithing became. That's why churches have that now. And it makes good sense. So hybridization, you can't do that. You got to go back to the seed companies. And you have to have the inputs, the chemicals. You've got to have the fertilizer. You've got to have the pesticides. Because but one of the problems with hybridized food and monocropping, a monocrop culture, which is antithesis of what you find in nature. You go out in the woods, you see everything growing up. There's a biodiversity and ecodiversity. You got all kind of plants. You got tall plants, short plants, and trees, forests, wherever you are. In the savannas, you got tall grasses, short grasses. The grasses change over the season, summer in, each month. Just as the fruit goes through the season, you start through the summer and you start off with berries, all right, and then cherries, peaches, and the apricots, and the nectarines, and eventually in the fall you get your apples and your pears. Okay? The same thing happens out in the plains and in the prairies where the grasses grow. You have different kinds of grasses that grow at different times of the year. You have a biodiversity, ecodiversity. But you go to any of these countries that are practicing commercial agriculture, you see one thing in the field. That's it.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that one thing in the field. We want to get back to some of the impact this has on farmers, and Nadia, before we went to that break, wanted to know something about why farmers are committing suicide. But in the natural state of growth, we have an incredible diversity. You're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Which yes, we do. Yes.
And so when there is that sameness, that creates problems in any number of ways. And what are some of those problems?
If you get a disease, dis-ease, or an insect in that eats it up, it's going to eat it all up.
Everything, right?
Everything's gone. Here's lunch. Let's eat. And they got a whole field of the same thing. Where if you have a diversity out there, a diverse biosphere, you're going to have good insects, bad insects. Yeah, the good insects will ward off the bad ones. So you have the plants growing next to each other, companion planting. Some plants will repel insects, repel disease, so it creates a balance that stays in harmony. You're always going to lose some, but you don't want to put yourself in the position of losing it all. And the easiest way to lose it all is only have one thing out there. You put it's the old nursery rhyme, never put all your eggs in one basket. And this is what we do in commercial agriculture. We put all of our eggs in one basket, so therefore we have to come in with chemicals to keep spraying it, all the fertilizers to make it grow, lots of water to keep it, because you can't do it without water, and it becomes very, very precarious.
Now, even years ago, when there were problems with cotton growth, right, the boll weevil, people have said, I think, that the reason there was such a massive problem with this is that cotton was commodified. In other words, there was just tons of cotton in one field, which then provided the opportunity for this boll weevil.
Yeah, there were several issues with that. I got to tell you a little joke happened this morning. A man called me up from the Department of Agriculture yesterday. The Ag Commissioner came out to visit us some time ago, and we told him we had some cotton plants planted out there and down in Wheat Street.
Right.
So they had to send the man out. He wanted to call me up. He wanted to come out and trap the boll weevils that we may have on our cotton downtown. I said, well, my friend, it didn't grow. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. But they were so concerned because they have eliminated the boll weevil in Georgia. Okay, but the reason they had the boll weevil was multifaceted. One, they were monocropping. It's the only thing they grew. They grew it every single year. They mined the soil. What they did to grow it, they weren't concerned about creating biological life in the soil. Your soil is a living thing. Okay, it's all part of Gaia, Mother Earth. You have to feed the soil. The soil is alive. A good, healthy soil. You go out in the woods and look in the woods and move the humus around, you're going to find all kinds of like roly-polies, centipedes, millipedes, earthworms. There's life out there, spiders, just all kind of stuff that makes that soil alive. There's mycelium in there, all kind of microbacteria that are growing in that ground that make it alive and a living, breathing thing. But you go out into the fields are dead. Those cotton fields back at the time, because they had been monocropped, they were not enriching the soil. This is why George Washington Carver is so important. We talked about that last time to help folks learn how to do crop rotation, right, and to grow things that were going to add humus, add organic material back to the soil so the soil could be healthy and grow. And you wouldn't have the boll weevil just knew. It just sat there waiting every year.
Couldn't wait for that crop.
Yeah, they couldn't wait. Man, they're going to be back here real soon with some more cotton. Let's go get it.
Yeah.
Every single year. And you can't do that. I mean, so just moving that from one field to another. So if they're waiting, where's the cotton? Oh, man, what is the soybeans they got out here? I don't understand this. We were expecting cotton. They'll talk generations back, and all they got is cotton. And they got the soybeans coming in. They're looking for the cotton. You move to another field. This is one of the ways you can fool insects is by having a rotation of your crops. Keep moving things around. So they depleted the soil. They only had a monocrop. Okay? So you created a habitat. It wasn't a habitat for cotton. It was a habitat for boll weevils to come in and eat the cotton. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge mistake.
Now, before we go to India and talk about suicides here, which is just
and what they've done to try to fix that,
incredibly tragic, we do need to mention something about genetically modified foods, Rashid. This is sort of like the next. It was the next phase after all this stuff happened after the Second World War.
Right. So here, it's a very simple proposition. Rather than hybridizing, crossing plants to get it, we have to go back a couple of generations to get the seed. They're taking genes and splicing it into the seed so that they would get characteristics that are helpful to them. The principal one is they use Bt cotton, Bacillus thuringiensis. Now that's a bacteria that kills bugs. Okay, you can get it. I will use Bt. All right, but I won't use it. I don't want a seed that has it in there. I want to take the bacteria, which it's natural.
Right.
You can use that, and it kills soft worms. Okay, I don't use it very often because our soil is good. We haven't had any problem this year, by God's grace. Let me knock on wood. Okay, but they've taken these chemicals. Let me make it more simple. We use cotton as an example. They have Roundup Ready cotton. Roundup is a herbicide that kills all broadleaf plants. You don't want to have weeds in your fields. That's why you hoe. Okay, you don't want something to compete with the thing that you're trying to grow. So they'll have Roundup Ready corn, Roundup Ready cotton, Roundup Ready soybeans that Monsanto has created. So they've inserted this gene into the seed itself, bred it into the seed itself, so that it will kill all of the broadleaf weeds that emerge in the garden. The only thing that'll come up is the cotton, corn, and the soybeans.
And it says so that's adding more chemicals to the soil,
That's
more chemicals to the food that we're eating, and so forth, right? You do need to talk about what Monsanto is, though.
Monsanto is a very large chemical company. They and DuPont are probably the two biggest ones that make agricultural chemicals. They invented Roundup some years ago. Roundup is very efficient in keeping the broadleaf weeds out of the farm land. So they spray it. They spray it from airplanes. They spray it with tractors. You spray it by hand. You can buy Roundup to kill the grass that's coming up in the cracks in your sidewalks at home. Roundup is the drug chemical used for killing weeds.
And what's it doing to us?
To us people.
Well, to people, to the soil, to the environment, to global warming, to.
It's supporting systems of agricultural production that are killing the earth.
Yeah.
Okay? Those chemicals kill everything that's in the soil.
And it's getting into our groundwater?
It's everywhere. Okay, it's in everywhere. Most often, before they even plant, they'll go through with a chemical to kill everything, all the weeds that are there. Then you add the Roundup to kill the things as they emerge out of the soil. So you just have the plants. So this is stuff in there, and all of this requires fertilizer, tremendous amounts of irrigation, pesticides, and every year you come back, the plants and the bugs become more, and the plants and the bugs become the non-beneficial, the harmful insects become more and more resistant to all of these chemicals that go in.
Okay, so I think that this is really important because this just demonstrates how nature will resist what this science-based agriculture that you're talking about.
You can't dominate nature.
You can't dominate nature.
So to lead into where these suicides are coming, you've got these farmers who are convinced to use this new technology, which is making money for folks back here in the West. Okay, using this new technology, they borrow the money to put the crops in, and instead of making money, they become further and further in debt.
Exactly.
In order to grow these crops, it takes a tremendous amount of capital to be able to do it. So if you're on a very large scale and can live on a small margin because of the volume that you're creating, you can make money. All right, but if you're a small farmer and you've been convinced to use this new technology that is foreign to your history, and you have to go borrow money to put in this crop instead of just saving what you had from last year and putting those seeds back in the ground, you have to go borrow money. And using one of the first books that I read was by Sir Albert Howard. It's called Agriculture, not the first book, let me correct that. As I was learning about agriculture, it was by Sir Albert Howard. It's called the Agricultural Testament. And he spent many, many years in India using elephant dung, okay, to grow food.
And it was very effective, I'm sure.
Very effective. And the irony is I'm using elephant dung now to grow food.
Oh, are you really?
Oh, yeah, that's our principal ingredient that we have
interesting,
down there.
Interesting.
And Yeah, Sir Albert Howard's a great book, Agricultural Testament. And I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm curious to know where you're
it.
getting the elephant, Doug.
Zoodoo.
That's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping.
No, we don't have any elephants down there. Zoodoo. So you were talking about India. Here you got people that have been, they would collect the dung in any place from the animals that you have on the farm. You use that as the fertilizer, whether it's pigs, cows, horses, mules, sheep, goats, chickens, all of that. You put even human manure, okay? Other places in the world, people use their own waste to put back in the ground to feed it. Now, I wouldn't touch it in this country. A very simple reason is you think about what you put down the toilet. Your very self, okay? And whether you want to have some of that go back around your food. So no, I would never
because of all the chemicals that we're using, or all the chemicals that we have in our diet, the prescription drugs and so forth, which is another serious problem.
There you go. So you wouldn't do that here.
No.
All right, but so back to the Indian farmer who would use the animal waste from his farm. He would use the hay and the grass to make compost. He would put that in the ground, grow his food. Okay? He would save the seed from the previous year. He had a system. It was subsistence. Some people did well, but they lived. Now you have to go borrow money. And if you have some disaster out there...
And they've never had to do this before.
No.
Most of these farmers have never had to do this.
No.
They were self-sufficient in that sense.
There you go. So here you say, try our system. This will work. Look what kind of yield you can get, but it's going to cost you this much to get it. And then each year you got to come back, you got to buy more, and you got to buy more of the chemicals, of the fertilizers. You have to pay for the irrigation systems, make sure you have enough water, because you can't use these new technologies in agriculture without sufficient water. Okay, they're still trying to breed seed for drought areas, drought-resistant seed, and they're having trouble with this, trying to merge this genetic technology with the realities of where they are. Still in the same Newtonian mechanic paradigm of science. We know what the constituent parts are, so we can take it apart and put it back together in a way that we can dominate nature. Doesn't work.
I want to tell our listeners that you are listening to WRFG Atlanta 89.3 FM. We're talking with urban farmer Rashid Nuri about industrial agriculture. Nadia?
I do. I have two questions,
yes,
but I know we want to open up the phone lines.
Yeah, let's open up. Let's get that phone number.
Let's get the phone number out.
Which is 404-523-8989. Why don't you give us a call and join this discussion, ask Rashid a question.
Rashid, I have two questions. One deals with the irrigation, which you've mentioned several times now, that these hybrid, genetically altered seeds require irrigation. But wouldn't you need irrigation anyway? I mean, doesn't everything need water to grow? That's the first question. The second is, you've mentioned India several times. Is this unique to India right now, or is it occurring elsewhere around the globe?
It's occurring elsewhere. I'll do the second one first. It is occurring elsewhere in the world, but you have some of the most stark examples of this in India, folks committing suicides, having riots, farmers' associations and unions that have decided to protest the imposition of these Western companies in their work. As far as the irrigation is concerned, yes, you have to have water.
I've heard estimates of anywhere from 150,000 to 200,000 suicides in India. And also, I spent some time in the Philippines, Rashid. Farmers were committing suicide there, too, because of this.
Yeah, it happens all over. And it's because they've been, they're in debt. They can't pay their bills. They can't take care of their family. Okay? You do need water, but you need more water with the high technology. It's part. You're shaking your head. Why? Because it's the technology that underlies. It's the science that underlies the technology. Part of the requirement is lots of water to get the chemicals down, to hold them down, to help them uptake to the plants. You need more of it in order to get it done. You're putting the water is not just to go down to the roots. The water's got to get the stuff to go up into the plants also. It's going to take more to suck it up.
That makes sense. Rashid, we do have a caller on the line. Amar, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Rashid, do you know of the company that produced the Agent Orange? And I have another question. Are you familiar with the incident in Bhopal, India, for the chemical company. Something happened, and they wiped out an entire village in Bhopal, India. I'm going to hang up and listen for your answer.
Yes, sir. Peace be unto you, brother. It's ironic, isn't it now? What was Agent Orange? Agent Orange was a chemical that killed all the crops and harmed the people. It's a perfect example of the problem that we have with this. Agent Orange was one of the most successful chemicals, one of the most financially successful chemicals ever created, and it was designed by Monsanto, the same people who are bringing the chemicals to the Roundup to commercial agriculture.
Successful in what sort of way?
They made money.
Oh, successful in making money.
But
Agent Orange was used, I mean, I think wasn't it first used in Vietnam?
Yeah, that's where it was used. It was to defoliate the trees.
To defoliate.
So they could see the Vietnamese as they were walking along the path, so they could see them. With all the foliage in the tropical area, you could not see down to the forest floor. But if you defoliated it all, then you get the helicopters up there that could spot the troops as they were moving along. But what did the Vietnamese do? They dug tunnels.
Yeah, right. So they resisted too.
Yeah, they went on the ground, dug tunnels, and you still couldn't see them.
But we do need to say, however, that the problems from that has just been immense.
Oh, no. Yeah.
That, I mean, the land is just destroyed.
Well, not only the land, but people.
The
I
people
can't tell you how
too.
many
That's
people
right.
I've met in this country who were out there and they got cancers and all kind of bodily dis-ease because of their exposure to Agent Orange.
Right.
Agent Orange was one of the most, from the business point of view, one of the most successful campaigns that Monsanto had. They sold it to the government. So I said, war is good for the economy.
For some people, Rashid.
Yeah.
But I want to give the phone number again, which is 404-523-8989. Please give us a call.
Did we get both of his questions?
No, we didn't. The second question was about a village.
Oh, Bhopal.
In Bhopal.
Yeah. It was. If I remember correctly, it was a Monsanto plant that exploded. It was a chemical plant.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it was a chemical plant that exploded and poisoned all the people in a wide radius around the plant. Those were agricultural chemicals that was being manufactured there, and just killed, tens of thousands of people.
Now, Nadia had another question as well.
I do, actually, and my question has to do with the Food and Drug Administration in this country. Can you explain, please, why, if Monsanto and the chemicals it produces and other chemicals and companies like Monsanto, if they're so dangerous to both us and to the planet that we're living on, why are these things allowed by the FDA?
It really is quite simple, because they own them. They own them. Okay? I mean, you can buy a politician, and I, with all due respect to my political colleagues who may be listening, the American political system is for sale. Okay? He who has the big bucks gets what he wants. And many times what the Food and Drug Administration will say is they will not test to see if something is healthy. They will say that based upon the information that they have received from the manufacturer who's agreed that they have tested these things, we feel that this is safe. There's no safety there. Let me say that again. Based upon, just like a audit that you get from an accountant, based upon the information that has been provided to us, we think this is a good audit. We think this is a good chemical that ought to be able to come out to our people, to be sold to the people. And in the same, also, you got to also remember that you got to politicians have to, the companies have send their representatives to Washington, punch their tickets, to be able to lobby within the government and take seats within the government to be able to represent their interests. The USTR, the U.S. Trade Representative, a couple of people in the higher rungs of that office all came out of the agricultural chemical industry. Okay, and you'll find this throughout the United States Department of Agriculture, the Food and Drug Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency. The very companies that are doing the polluting and destroying the planet have their representatives helping to make the decisions in Congress, in the executive branch. And then in Congress, if I give you a $50,000 campaign contribution, well, no, that's purely illegal. Okay, but if we manage to get
you can put it in a political action committee, and
there you go, political action committee, and they come and you get this so you get reelected. If I call you up and tell you what my point of view is on a subject, you're going to listen to me, right? Because you want to get that money again so you can stay reelected. It's an insidious system, but it's the one we have. So what do? We have to create the alternative.
Yeah. Rashid, we do have another caller on the line. Sir, are you there?
Hey, How you doing?
Peace be unto you.
How you doing, Baba Rashid?
I'm just fine. Peace be unto you.
I respect the work you're doing a lot. I think it's an overlooked aspect of life and a most basic and a most essential part of life that is just overlooked by everybody, it seems like.
Right.
And it is very important. And I just wanted to input here the fact that I have friends who have lived in the city of Atlanta all their lives. I'm a transplant, as you may be able to tell. But I had people who live here went since they were children, and they told me when as growing up as children in Atlanta, they had a lot of fruit trees and a lot of trees that you could get food from, growing wildly in the metropolis. And since then it has disappeared. And, what you're saying about Agent Orange and things like that. I remember when I was a child growing up in my native land, they used to have this thing where they'd have planes going over and putting these chemicals in the air that would kill mosquitoes, for example. And I just suspect that there was a larger plan to that in killing all these fruit trees so you could buy their hybrid foods from the store at ETC. I just suspect that dearly because of what you're talking about, the political elements in these big cities, especially.
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to, you being an expert in this area, I'm wondering if you could give me a little more on that, if you could.
Thank you so much for calling. We appreciate it. So, Rashid.
He's right. I'm not sure what I can add to that. He's right. There are a lot of political machinations that go on, people trying to control and dominate not only the world, nature, but the people in the world. And a lot of it's quite insidious. Again, we could sit up and rail against, and I did very much as a young man. Today, I decided that what I have to do is create the alternative. Here on a program like this on WRFG and the grace that you've given me the opportunity to talk to folks on Just Peace, we can try to educate folks and help them to have a better understanding of these paradigms and how they affect us. But the real action, work comes out what we're going to do about it. And from my point of view, is to create Truly Living Well, where we are growing. The brother was talking about the fruit trees that used to be there. You come down to our site, we got fruit trees at every site that we have.
Yeah.
It's very important. We grow that. We ask if people if you have a piece of land, you come to me and say, I got 10 acres of land. I say, take half of it and put fruit trees in. That's the first thing that you should do. Then you can start growing vegetables. Get your long-term food in. There's no reason, edible landscaping. If you want a tree to sit under and so you can have some shade, there are a lot of beautiful trees out there, but why not get a fruit tree so you can eat it as well as get shade, food, and let an apple hit you in the head and you can eat it and have your lunch. You don't have to move. Stay in the hammock all day, okay? But let that land be productive for us. So there's no reason that we shouldn't do that. I think grass is one of the greatest waste of resources you could possibly have. There is more fertilizer used on golf courses than lawns than there are in agriculture in this country.
That's interesting.
Okay?
Rashid, we do have another caller on the line. LaDonna, are you there?
Yes, LaDonna's here.
Go ahead.
I'm going to write that down. Okay.
Thank you.
LaDonna Cater. I often call in, and I'm also a contributor to WRFG. I so appreciate you.
Well, we appreciate your contributions. Thank you.
You're welcome, Rashid. I'm so happy to hear you're on the show and talking about something that I'm constantly drilling in my neighbors' ears, my family's ears, and things of that nature. And this is so important to our livelihood that I think it should be discussed at least once a week. Mm-hmm. We really got to drill it in people.
Sister, the peace be unto you. I have the benefit of being able to discuss this every day. This is what I do. So God has been good to me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I meant once a week on the radio.
We understand.
Okay. And I do my little contribution, but we'll get to that last. But I have a comment, and then I have 2 short questions. First, my understanding from doing some research that the PLUs for the GMOs start with the number 4, it's 4 letters, PLUs on the fruits. And number 9 are organics, and of course number 8, beginning with number 8, PLUs, conventional. If you can break down for our listeners, what that is. And my question is also is what constitutes those three? And do you think that chemtrails? Do you think that's a part of Monsanto's dirty work? So, however, I'm going to hang up and listen.
Well, we thank you so much.
Yeah, there's a lot there, sister. You've that's deep. Yeah, at first I didn't understand that PLUs. Those are the codes, the numbers that you find on the food. You go like cherries are 4045. I happen to know that because I like cherries, and they are supposed.
So what is the PLU?
That's product. It's the PLU is the number. It's a standard number. So any place you go in the country and perhaps in the world, if you when you get to the cash register or the self checkout, you can input the numbers of the commodity.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's the same number any store that you go into.
Okay.
So once you know those numbers, it is standardized, and you can use that at any store across the country and I think around most of the world.
Okay.
She's right. The 9 is for organics, but the problem with that is this: the USDA certified organic standard is a patented phrase. It's something that you buy. Okay, it is oxymoronic to me to have organic food at Walmart, which was produced in China, that would have an organic stamp on it. It makes no sense to me. Chinese have been busted out already for faking it. We find it right here in this country. And when you have commercial farmers growing organic food as a market niche right next to each other, you got two systems supposedly going on right next to each other, there's a problem with that whole terminology. The only way you're really going to know what you're getting in your food is to grow it yourself or go to someone who you know who is growing the food for you. So part of the work that we do, we try and have people help them to attain horticultural literacy. I think it is extremely important for people to know who grows their food, the quality of their food, and where their food comes from. If you come to our site, you're able to get food right. You can see it right there in the ground growing and be able to bring it home. So just because it's labeled organic doesn't mean that it's healthful and safe for you. You've got to know what it is. And I would contend that you got a whole lot of products out there. Anything that you buy at the store that has more than 5 ingredients is not food. Somebody in a laboratory has created it. Okay? Carrot is a carrot. An apple is an apple. A collard green is a collard green. There's no label on it that says this collard green is made up of all these different things that we've put together. Okay?
Right.
All right. So just because that label says it's organic, that does not mean that is the best thing that's available to you.
Yeah.
What they've been able to create is these food scientists and the government has been able to create this perception for people that this food is good and it's not necessarily so.
All right. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a moment. I'm going to give the phone number though, Nadia, 404-523-8989. Please give us a call, make a comment, ask a question. Yes, again, my name is Heather Gray and the program is Just Peace, and we're talking with urban farmer Rashid Nuri about industrial agriculture primarily and its impact on all of us. We have another caller.
We do. Linda, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hi, Linda.
Thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
I have 2 quick questions. More and more I'm noticing that when you go to the store and you want to buy some fruit, none of them have seeds anymore, not even the watermelon. Is there anywhere where we can get fruit that has the seed, that has been grown, the way we're used to it? And the other question is, when are you having classes again? And I'll listen offline.
All right.
Yeah, Rashid, include what you're talking about, this contact information.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Linda. Peace be unto you. Yeah, isn't that an anomaly that you're going to have a watermelon that has no seeds in it, or a grape that has no seeds in it? How's it going to reproduce itself? It's a freak. You don't find anything like that in nature. The best place to go to buy food is a local farmer's market. And there are many of them around town, and I think WRFG is going to start posting the farmers market.
Yeah, we're wanting to do that. Absolutely, start posting where these markets are exactly.
Yeah, truly, we have 2 markets. We have one in East Point on Wednesday afternoons at 3353 Washington Road. On Fridays, we're downtown in the Old 4th Ward on Hilliard, right off of Auburn, near the King Center. My phone number is 404-520-8331, 520-8331. You're welcome to call me just about any time. What else?
The website.
Website is trulylivingwell.com. trulylivingwell.com, and you can email me at Rashid@trulylivingwell.com.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, Rashid, we do have another caller, and I'm afraid we lost one caller. Please call back, ma'am, if you can. But right now we have Anthony on the line. Anthony, are you there?
Anthony, welcome. Maybe we lost Anthony
Maybe
as
we
well.
lost
We've got
Anthony.
somebody else calling in here.
All right.
Again, the phone number is 404-523-8989. Rashid, you can buy something called organic beef, but apparently there's a difference. There is a difference. Apparently this organic beef can be called organic if that cow ate organic corn.
Right.
Rather than grass-fed beef.
Rather than grass-fed, I call it input substitution. They're doing exactly the same thing.
Input substitution, that's a good term, yeah.
They're doing exactly the same thing as the commercial farmers. They take them on a feedlot, feed them out grain, so they're still grain-fed, and that's not natural for a cow. Cows aren't supposed to eat. Think about it. Those of you old enough to know when they started this grain-fed beef campaign back in the late 60s, early 70s, and got the whole nation hooked on this thing. When cows eat grass, that's all they need. I mean, that's the best argument you can have for a vegetarian. Look at all the biggest animals in the world. All they eat is grass.
Yeah, I think that most corn is grown, right, for these cows,
That's
for
correct.
this livestock.
Well, you just
crazy.
said that grass was a waste of land.
No.
Depends on the grass.
Golf courses and grass in front
All
of
right.
the house. If you're grazing chickens, if you're grazing cows, I approve.
You support that. All right. We do, thankfully, we seem to be having trouble with the phone system. We lost Anthony, but Jessica did call us back. Jessica, are you there?
Yes, greetings.
Greetings. Please
Hello,
go
Jessica.
ahead.
Welcome.
I want to give thanks to Brother Rashid for the information that he's been giving. It's very, very real and very deep, and I wish, like the lady said before, people would really get into their minds what you want to tell them. But what I want to get into with my question, I heard him say about growing your trees, and if anything, I know I heard about the classes for Truly Living Well, but if you were doing your own yard as well as for doing, like if I wanted to start my own trees or do an own ground garden, what is the best way to tell the conditions of your soil versus if there's anything natural you can, place over your soil to kind of get that growing in a healthy way? Is there any possible way like that?
That's a very interesting way you put that together. I think the answer is yes to everything that you just said. How you tell the key indication of the quality of your soil is the number of the earthworms that you find. If you don't find any earthworms, you know the soil is dead. Earthworms are going to come into a healthy soil. So that's the best indicator of the quality of your soil are your earthworms. Now, you can get the earth. You've heard the saying, if you build it, they'll come. If you build that soil, if you start adding organic material to it, adding compost to it, the worms will all of a sudden appear. I don't know if they come out of the air or what, but they'll show up. I promise you this. And that is one of the things we will talk about in the class, and we're going to have another class. And all my classes are really geared for the beginners right now, folks that really do want to get a fundamental understanding of what we're doing. That'll be the last half of August. The next couple of weeks, we're going to announce it. If you're not already on our mailing list for Truly Living Well, if you don't get our newsletter, send me. You can sign up at our website, trulylivingwell.com, or you can send me an email at Rashid@trulylivingwell.com, and I'll put you on a mailing list. We're going to have a class in a few weeks.
Rashid, we do have one last caller, and I want to thank all of you who have called and those who are still calling in. Unfortunately, we only have time for one more caller, and that is Kimberly. Kimberly, are you there?
I am here. Thank you so much. Rashid, one of the questions I have, I was using True Green to actually for my lawn care, and then one day I realized when my cat was going out that she eats the grass evidently for her digestive system. And I wondered, is it anything, because after I realized that I actually stopped them from coming out because I knew that they were putting chemicals on my yard to control the weed in the yard. Do you have any suggestions of anything that I can do organic to actually stop the weeds in the yard so I can stay away from the chemicals?
Yeah, the most organic thing you can do is get out there with a fork, a garden fork, and pull the weeds out.
Yeah.
You'll get some exercise, and your lawn will look lovely. Not really. They're going to come. If you one way to help on a more serious note is you can always reseed your grass. If you find you have a lot of weeds, more weeds than grass out there, you may want to start again. But the best way to keep your grass green and clean is to go out there and pull the weeds out. That's what I have to do in the garden. I know that may not be what you wanted to hear.
Thanks so much for calling. Thank you. All right. Well, Rashid, why don't you get some contact information again?
Rashid Nuri is my name, 404-520-8331. 404-520-8331. You can send us an email to my name, RASHID, at trulylivingwell.com, and that is also our website, www.trulylivingwell.com.
Well, we have just a couple of minutes here. So what I'd like to do actually is for you to tell us what's in the ground now at Wheat Street. What's coming up?
What's coming up? Yeah, well, we had tomatoes. Our tomatoes are really popping out the ground. At our market this week, we'll have sweet corn, butter beans, cow peas, black-eyed peas. I think we have any string beans, zucchini, squash, okra, garlic. We still have lots of garlic left.
The garlic that you have is just absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's all wonderful, but I was using some of the garlic the other day. It was just superb.
Not too, not too pungent. There's a sweetness to it.
Yeah, right.
It's because we build soil.
Yeah.
We got lots of herbs. Last week we harvested some honey.
That's what I heard, Rashid.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the market, but I heard you had honey. I heard it was fantastic. Are you going to have honey that you'll be selling, or
later on in the year? Yeah, we just opened the hive to see how it was doing, and it was doing so well we had to take some of the honey out of there.
Wow.
And we packed it. We put it in plastic cups with a plastic bag on top. Set it out there for folks if they wanted to buy it, and there was none left when it was time to go home.
This is another thing that people can learn to do. They can learn also about honey, how to produce honey. So being a beekeeper,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what else? When are we going to see something from these fruit trees that you have around there?
So a couple of years.
They'll be in a couple of years.
Yeah, we had enough blackberries this year to feed the staff. And the muscadines and the scuppernongs got a few out there, so as soon as they're ripe, they'll be gone. But over the next few, what that tells us that the next couple of years ought to be very good. We already got production in the first year, which is unusual. As we go along, we'll have even more.
I have a fig tree at my house.
We will have some figs soon. We have 2 fig trees that we planted 2-3 years ago, and now they're big and just really kicking. We'll have some fun. We had a couple of. We already did some crab apples earlier. We've had a couple of plums off the trees that we planted last year. So we had a peach. I had a peach. Right now when they're babies, they only put 1 or 2, just a few fruit. But that lets us know what we can look forward to in the future.
Now, one of the things people need to know, too, is that at your markets, you have people out there who are giving cooking lessons also.
Yes, generally we have somebody out there giving cooking lessons.
Which is really great. All right.
Oh, that does sound fabulous.
All right, so Rashid, your website is trulylivingwell.com. Your phone number is?
404-520-8331.
All right, thanks so much, Rashid. It's just interesting as always.
Thank you, and peace be unto you all.
Yes, thanks.
All right, thank you for listening, and stay tuned now for Revolutionary African Perspectives, RAP, with Sebukwe Shakura.